For our next presentation, I'm pleased to introduce Vanessa Arango, Senior Manager of UX Research at Delivery Hero. In her presentation, Evaluating User Experience, How Leaders Supercharge UX Research for Success, Vanessa shares how UX leaders play a pivotal role in maturing research programs. She also shares the most critical know-how for leveling up research proficiency, effectiveness, and impact. Let's check it out.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Arango, and today I will be talking about progressing UX research, or how to grow the research practice across the organization. I will be referring to my areas of focus and some concrete examples that have enabled me and my teams to grow before. And I hope that these examples inspires you and give you some concrete ideas of projects and frameworks that you can also implement to see that progress going on. During this talk, I will be talking about the process of progressing, what means that you need to create a more proficient, effective, and impactful discipline. This also means that I will be referring to some specific methods, tools, frameworks, and processes that needs to be in place or that you can develop in order to see that progression and the discipline growing inside your organization. But before jumping into the concept of progress, I would like to highlight the importance to understand where are you right now. Even if the scope of this talk is not going deeper into the different models that are already available and has been proven very effective for other organizations to assess and measure where they are right now in terms of the effectiveness of their user experience research practice, I would like to highlight the importance to understand where are you right now in order to define what is coming next. This understanding of where you are right now also needs to incorporate a little bit the context of your organization and the needs of the organization that you need in. But I will refer to this a little bit further in the presentation. Right now, I want to briefly refer to the 5 stages model that has been developed by Get Your Guide. In this model, each one of the levels consider 3 main dimensions that you need to progress in order to grow the discipline inside your organization. The first one refers to the incorporated user experience elements that includes 4 main dimensions or 4 main categories: the discourse, techniques, processes, and business. The second are the barriers that are present in order for you to continue progressing to the next level. And the last are the different techniques and discipline or methods that you need to develop in order to move to the next level. What means that to go from level 1 to level 5, you will need to incorporate all the 4 UX elements that are present, being business the last one. You need to have a very clear correlation between research deliverables or research insights with the business or product KPIs. And also you need to have scaled the discipline in ways that it is already impactful, valued, and widely accepted and adopted across the organization. Even if I do consider that the concept of progression or growing requires some steps that needs to be completed or some touch points that needs to be referred to, it is also important to understand that these models are not suitable without the right context in place. Before jumping into that growth plan and that strategy that you want to put in place for your team, I do believe that it's also important to think about the context of the business or the organization that you work in order to create a more consistent and more realistic plan to continue doing that progression. I think that in order to incorporate that context, it is important to think about 4 main things. The needs of your organization, this is quite straightforward. So where research can provide value or how research can enable some of the things that needs to happen in the organization to grow. The seconds are the tools and available budget. It is also important to understand how you can leverage internal tools that are already existing and what is the available capacity that you have to grow that toolkit in different directions for different needs. The third one is the impact or the expected impact from the research team. And this could take several forms according to different things. One thing that could be important here to consider is the structure of your current team. If the team is centralized or the team is embedded, it could be very different what is expected from the research team right now. Also, if there are other research teams across the organization, it is also important to understand what is the scope of each one of these teams and how to create these connections in order to create a more comprehensive and unified vision of the user experience for the different teams that you work with. And last but not least, UX measurement and metrics. And this is not only referring to the fact that there is a need to have some user experience measurement programs in place in order to grow and to understand well the impact of the different things that in terms of UX we do in order to create a better user experience, but also how we are measuring inside the organization right now the impact of the different projects that is beyond the business and the product KPIs. So all this model of maturity and how to assess the maturity are very, very useful, but also keep in mind that some of these dimensions or elements that needs to be incorporated and how they have a conversation with the context of your organization and your company, it is also important to be realistic about the different steps or the different stages that this maturity needs to go into in order to continue seeing that progress. I also believe that these models consider that processes are something that is developed later in the process of maturity in the user experience research discipline, but I do believe that processes are fundamental to grow the discipline from scratch. So there are some differences and some things that you need to consider before creating that plan and assessing where are you right now. Personally, I focus in 5 main pillars or areas of focus in order to create a plan and a strategy for growing the discipline inside organizations that I work with. And it doesn't mean that one of them is more important than the other, or that the different examples that I'm going to provide, one needs to happen before or after the other in order to see that progression. I do believe that you need to understand very well, again, the context, the needs, and the expected impact of the team before defining which of these specific strategies or initiatives are suitable for you. But I have seen some progress, steady progress, utilizing the different examples that I am going to mention. Again, keep in mind that contextualizing these examples, it is important for you in order to create a more realistic plan to grow the discipline in your organization. These 5 areas are people, processes, practice quality, alignment and collaboration, and strategy and contribution. First of all, I want to refer to the people, to the individuals. I do believe that researchers are essential in order to grow the discipline to the next level. They are the ones that hold, at the end, the technical skills in order to create and to deliver impactful and quality-driven research deliverables. And when I refer to the team, to the individuals, and to create a very consistent and professional team of researchers, I am not only referring to a strong group of senior researchers, but actually I am referring to creating the framework and the structure in order to create the same opportunities, accountability, and responsibilities for entry-level and junior researchers in order for them to also contribute into the research socialization, education, and awareness across the organization. This also means that we need to create a platform for all of these researchers or individuals to learn from each other, to create these learning opportunities for all of them to really continue growing and to continue practicing in order to create a strong team of individual contributors. Dedicating enough time to the teams to understand very well where are they in their career, what needs to be done in order to continue growing and to continue expanding their influence or their capabilities, and also recognizing their contribution across the team is very, very important to continue creating a culture of growing, a culture of learning, a culture of continue delivering every time more and more impact. For example, you could have researchers that are very strong in storytelling, and maybe they will need to start practicing in mentoring others. Also, you could have researchers that require so much more development in their technical capabilities, and also they need to get better or to continue practicing in how to build a very compelling and attractive story around the insights. This could mean a very nice collaboration process, and also this could really create environment for these 2 individuals to grow together and to practice both of them and to take advantage of what is needed from each one of them and also continue progressing in their careers. There are 3 key main resources that has proven to be very effective for me in the past in order to create that progression and that career growth for different individuals and researchers. The first is a very well-structured career framework, or at least a visibility of how this career progression looks like for them. It is important to create that visibility for them to understand very well what needs to be done, what skills that they can continue developing, or how to continue progressing and moving forward in their careers. This also needs to be very well connected to growth, development, and improvement plans that needs to be in place, formalized, and documented, and also have formal and specific check-ins for the manager or the person that is in charge of the research discipline in the organization to check on that progress, to provide feedback, and to also support through that growth of improvement plan. Last, to have specific instances for rehearsal, for training, and for learning between all the team members. Right now in my team, we have a rehearsal meeting in place that has proven to be very effective to course correct some processes and projects that are in place right now for different researchers in different stages of that specific project. So for example, researchers can go to that space and to present what specific stage in which they need or require some feedback, or maybe they can practice the presentation before going into a bigger presentation to other kind of stakeholders that has given them some security and some very formal feedback instances for them to incorporate that feedback in different stages of their projects. We also have a quarterly based training meeting in which what we do is try to bring some external people to help us to learn a little bit more about, for example, agile processes of working, but also could become good opportunities for individual researchers to go and share their own experience with some specific processes, some specific tools, projects, and deliverables in order to also continue building that, platform for them to share and help others learn, and also for others to learn from them. In summary, it's all about learning, practicing, sharing, and growing together as a team in order to create more impactful deliverables and more quality-driven research execution. The second pillar refers to research operations and enable and scaling research practice. I cannot recommend enough to different managers or persons that are in charge of the research discipline in different organizations to dedicate the right time and resources in order to create that fundamental platform in order to grow the discipline into different directions. It is not a mystery that research operations enables the research practice and create more effective frameworks in order to scale, speed up the process, to create some consistency, and to be sure that we are delivering the high quality work that we want to deliver every time that we share insights with our teams. In my current role, I work with research operations team, and I cannot recommend enough again how effective it is to really dedicate the right resources and tools to develop the correct processes and frameworks in order to scale and speed up the research process in your organization. There are three main initiatives that has proven me in the past to be very effective to develop that framework, that foundations that are required in order to scale and grow the research discipline, independent of the type of organization, the size of the organization, and the size of the team that you are working with. The first, a recruitment panel. Right now we have in place a panel that allow us to access super fast to users that could be potential participants to different studies that we need to run. This panel has saved us around 30 to 40% of the time that we were dedicated to recruitment before. This also needs to be complemented with different strategies on how to do this recruitment process working better. That means, for example, having some scheduling tools in place in order to automatize some communication flows with these potential participants. This also means that you need to have in place this incentive strategy, or how are you going to create that story about to participants to feel tempted to be part of the different studies that they could be participating in. Or also this could be related to how are you going to respond to no-shows and other things that researchers are so used to face in the day-by-day of their work. We also invest some time in order to grow that panel and expand that panel to incorporate new user segments and also to clean it up recurrently to keep it healthy and also accessible for different team members. The second initiative is about the processes and how to map down the complete end-to-end research process. If you map down the complete end-to-end research process, you can first create that expectations from the researchers or what are the different stages that they need to complete before delivering the research deliverables, the reports, or the insights. Second, you can easily attach to each one of these stages of the process the different resources and tools and documents that you have available in order to simplify the research process. So for example, we dedicate a lot of time in creating templates, different resources for the teams that they can easily replicate in order to forget to the most basic part of the research process, and they can focus on the most difficult ones. In that scenario, mapping down that complete process and attaching to it the different resources that you have available to the team members in order to speed up the research process is also very valuable and can help you to the scalability and that consistency that you are searching across the different projects that are implemented. Third, with all this process mapped, you are also creating some documentation that later could be accessed by other team members in the future or maybe by other stakeholders that needs to speed up their onboarding process in some specific project. They want to provide feedback, they want to contribute in different stages. So having that documentation in place that is also mapped down or traced back down to a specific process and how this process is mapped down in your specific team or organization is quite useful and important. And last but not least, frameworks for persons that execute research that maybe are not researchers. It's not a mystery that different companies and different organizations go from a completely different path and democratize the process of doing research. Independent of what is your vision about the democratization of research, it is true that if this is the reality of the organization in which you work in, it is important to create that framework in order to create that consistency, that quality, and enable other people to do research in the best way possible. This again could take different forms depending on what kind of people is doing research, what are the research deliverables expected from these persons, or what kind of projects they are going to be tackling. The third pillar, in order to grow the research practice, refers to the practice itself. It is referring or including topics like expanding or creating new skills or capabilities, or also creating and incorporating new research methods in order to grow the research discipline in your organization. For this pillar, I have several examples that I can share, but I would like to focus on three main areas inside the research practice itself that for me has been very effective to develop and to focus on. The first is referring to the documentation. I do believe that research documentation or documentation in general plays a critical role in that accessibility, in the collaboration, transparency, consistency, and communication with other team members. At the end, documentations enhance the work of the researchers and boost collaboration processes with other team members and with other stakeholders across the organization. It is very important to enable others to access to the past research data in order for us to avoid repeating working in the same research questions or maybe not connecting the dots between the different projects and insights that we have collected across time. And for that, the research repositories and the research repository tools are quite useful, right? But also I do believe that there are other more simplified ways to allow this accessibility to the past research to others that could be implemented that are more easy, cheaper, and scalable for the teams. For example, having a more simplified research inventory, it could be allocated in Google Docs, in a spreadsheet, right? With some specific data points that later could enable the teams to access to the data super easy with useful links and with a consistency across how the different projects are documented across. This has been super effective for us and my team in general in order to allow other people to access or to refer to the past knowledge that we have gathered, to maybe go deeper into some specific topics that they want to understand what is the knowledge that we held in that specific moment in time. So I do believe that accessibility through documentation is a critical point to work in. And this should be one of the first focus, maybe, and the most simple focus that you can be working on. The second part is about the discipline growth, and it's more about the research practice, growing the research practice, incorporating new research methods, maybe working with different research frameworks. And again, this could take different forms depending on what is the current state of the research practice in your current organization. So for example, for some teams, this could mean that you need to create the resources for more team members to be able to jump into more discovery and foundational research projects. For others, it could mean to develop the frameworks and the tools to enable other persons to do research, or maybe to democratize the process of evaluating design proposals in order to make it more scalable, more simplified, and faster, right? For others, and in my case, this means growing or expanding the way that we approach different customer segments, or also how we tackle different challenges and different kinds of projects that we are facing or implementing right now in the company. So to give a concrete example, we have been exploring ways on how to make or how to create a more inclusive research practice inside the organization, and this has been a focus for the research chapter for some time already. Last but not least is communication. Enable other team members to be part of the user research sessions, but also to access to the research data, or to be part of the research sessions, or to be part of the sharing sessions is quite important in order to create that awareness, not only about the insights, but also about the team, what we do, what we provide, what is the possible collaboration that they could have with us. So I really invite you to create the processes, the tools, or to enable others to be part of the sessions. And this should be very, very straightforward and something very simple to achieve. So for example, a couple of examples of what we do right now. We have an established monthly research insight sharing session in place, in which we have invited all the team members, and we try to share more fundamental knowledge about our users, and not too many insights at project level, but more about the users, right? At user level, that has created some awareness about what we do, like creating the spaces to share more insights about some of our key projects, for example, UX measurement strategies. So this has been very effective. So my invitation here is to create one specific dynamic or one specific session in which all the team comes together and is able to be part of different insights presentation. It's already in the calendar, there is a placeholder, and also take the time to share with the teams in whatever format you can do it, via email, via Slack, via chat, or even in the same calendar, to add more information about the session. What is the topic about? What we are going to be talking about? So this gives also some sneak peek to the possible people that is going to join and create that noise before the session starts. We also have enabled other team members to be an active part of the user research sessions, right? So something that it was very common when I started working with my current team. It's like everybody wanted to be closer to the user, right? Makes sense. We want product managers, designers, data analysts to really be in front of the users, to hear from them what are their pains, their delights, and also to have ideas and concrete things to do after some specific projects are completed. So what we did in that scenario was to enable everybody to join. Of course, we created observers room in order to create a comfortable space for participants to share everything, only talking with the researcher, but at the same time, we created that observer room to allow other team members and other participants to drive some questions that later the moderator could take on and do to the user directly. In that way, we created a public calendar in which we have all the user research sessions there, so you can easily join them if you have subscribed yourself to the calendar. Also, the note-taking documentation is attached to that calendar, and we also have in that same calendar the ad hoc presentations at project level for anybody that wants to join and to really wants to learn more about the different projects that we are delivering. So all of this about the practice needs to be focused in how to grow the practice, but not only grow the practice in terms of methodologies or technical capabilities, but also how to grow the awareness of how this practice is moving to the next level in the organization. The fourth pillar is alignment and collaboration. In order to achieve effectiveness, meaning delivering in time, and influence, meaning decisions and culture, it is important that the research process is embedded or integrated in the overall product development cycle. For that, creating a strong, clear collaboration processes, constant feedback instances and feedback loop, and healthy relationship with other team members will help research to be more impactful and have a stronger influence across the organization. I suggest having a common understanding of the ways of working. Right now in my team, we develop a stakeholder onboarding documentation in order for us to have a more consistent way to approach stakeholders when they were asking us questions about how we work, what is the expected collaboration that we need to have with them, what is expected from them during all the research process, or maybe what are our timelines, our portfolio of projects, and other related things, right? This also enables us to start the conversation with them and to start creating that educational touch points with different team members in order to start building that story around where we do believe that we can provide or we can be more impactful in the different product development moments of the product. So, for example, this enables us to move for purely or mostly purely evaluative projects or design-focused projects to more discovery and foundational projects that will allow us later to grow as researchers, to also see some progression in how the discipline has been delivering impact across the organization, but also to be more valuable to other team members. I also recommend to have a very clear prioritization framework or matrix in place. This means that you need to develop a very defined way to decide what the team is going to be working on. And this could take different forms depending on how your team is structured. Again, if your team is embedded in the different product teams, or maybe your team is more centralized and is focused in other kind of problem spaces or research questions, it is good to define very well how are you going to make that conversation with your stakeholders and have almost a very objective way to prioritize projects. What we did in the company also to facilitate that process was creating a kickoff meeting template in order to allow researchers to do the right questions to the stakeholders during that kickoff meeting. That later these data points were going to be incorporated in our prioritization document, and this will serve us to have a more clear way of prioritizing projects. This also needs to be shared. You need to collect feedback with the stakeholders, but at the end, what is important is to have a common understanding of why we work in some projects, what projects are we going to be working on, and what is expected in terms of outcomes for each one of these projects. Last, I also think that is very, very useful in terms of creating a more consistent collaboration strategy to work with research champions. Research champions are people with whom we pair as researchers that could help us or that work with us during the process of strategizing, executing, analyzing, and delivering research. These are persons that are already very embedded in the research process, that are strong believers of what research can do in organizations, or maybe that are people that already work or has some experience working with research before. Leveraging the impact that these research champions could have is very important for you to be able to be present when you are not present, right? Having these allies across the organization enable you to also leverage them and work with them in order to create that educational touch points with other team members in order to continue growing the discipline and the impact of the research deliverables from your team. Last but no less important, the research strategy. I do believe that in that sense, it is important to have projects that ensure breadth and depth and that can allow you to implement diverse research methods. I also believe that in terms of defining a research strategy, sometimes it's more important to show than to tell. I have seen teams struggling or individuals struggling to try to prove the value of what generative research or more discovery-driven research can do instead of dedicating too much time to the critical and urgent topics or focusing mostly in evaluating features that were already developed or are ready to be launched, and it's just about to evaluating how they are going to be used by the users. So in that scenario, seeing that struggle, I do believe, and in my experience, what I have done in the past in order to make that conversation a little bit more impactful is to really showing the value of what generative and more discovery-driven research can do, right? So finding the space and taking risk is quite critical here in order to continue progressing and moving forward. So it is important to take risk and especially identify the underlying questions that are in the company towards the users that could become opportunities for the research team to jump in and to really prove what we can do when we are more involved in the strategy, when we are more involved or are capable of working towards understanding more the foundations of our users and the knowledge that could drive product innovation across the company and the organization. In that way, I have seen different projects working very well, and I cannot go to concrete examples because all these underlying questions could be very different depending on the size of the team, the maturity of the team, not the UX research maturity, but in general, the product maturity of the team and the company that you're working in, also the knowledge that is already existing. So going deeply into some specific and concrete examples is not very useful right now, but I want to refer to the UX and CX measurement programs, right? In that scenario, I have seen some projects that has worked very well in order to increase the visibility of what we can do. But besides of increasing the visibility of what we can do, to really create more impact or to have a higher impact across the team, influencing more the product roadmap and influencing more the decision-making process of the teams. Also, to create higher awareness of what is the value of having a more user-centric way of prioritizing projects and features. User experience and customer experience longitudinal programs has proven me to be very effective in order to show that possible impact that the team could have, and also to enable the teams to take faster decisions incorporating the user voice. These specific programs could be focused on measuring ourselves against competitors or maybe measuring ourselves in different stages of the projects or different stages of the product development process. What it is important is to define a consistent strategy in order to measure and to understand very well what is right now and where is the gap of information that your company has in order to take advantage of that gap and create a strategy that will enable your team to grow and to be more impactful. A project that has worked very well for us is a longitudinal usability study that aims to collect different issues that occur in the core ordering flows across the time and how these issues change over time. What we do is to report issues according to severity and criticality, what means the importance of the task that the users are executing, the recurrence, what means how many users experience that issue, and the impact, how high is the interference of the issue in the overall experience. In that way, we are able to categorize the issues in terms of criticality, and we are able to report the more critical issues to the teams in order for them to prioritize that according to their users' expectations and the problems that the users are facing while interacting with our products. We also have SAQ, single use question, and Supercharge tracking and reporting across the time. At the end, what is essential in terms of our research strategy and our research portfolio is to have diverse type of projects that could enable us to work better with the teams and to work closer with the teams according to the needs of the organization, but also identifying concrete opportunities in which we can provide value, provide input, enable the teams to work with a more user-driven mindset, and also incentivize the innovative practices across the organization. In that scenario, it is very important for you to take risk and to be able to identify what are those opportunities that are present for your team in order to jump in and concretely create a strategy that delivers impact across the whole organization. Summarizing, Growing a UX research practice in an organization needs you to work in several areas at the same time, but it is very important that you are capable of creating a strategy that is contextualized in the needs of your organization. It will also be translated in more responsibilities, more impact, more recognition, and more valuable research delivered across time in the organization. For that reason, I do believe that focusing in that 5 areas and with concrete specific initiatives inside each one of them, it is going to be very important for you to see some progression in the discipline in your organization. Don't forget that people is the pillar that is the most important one and is the one that enables the other ones to happen. I hope that this talk has been insightful for you. Thank you for listening, and please reach out if you want to discuss any of these ideas or if you have others that you want to share with me. I am looking forward to hear your thoughts after the talk. Thank you.